All right, to the news of the day before we get to the politics. If you are paying off a house like me and a third of the country, little teensy weensy, little bit of good news.
For the first time in 2 years, Australia's official cash rate is sitting below 4%.
The Reserve Bank Board decided to slash its official rate by 1/4%.
The Reserve Bank announcing its second rate cut for the year.
Hello, Amy. Now, why did they cut the rate today? Second time this year. The first time was in February. That was a massive mover of millions of people when it came to voting at the federal election. Well, the Reserve Bank Governor tells us why we got a little tinsy-wincy cut today.
Now, we've done this because the most recent quarterly CPI confirmed that both headline and underlying inflation are now under 3%. So price increases have slowed and it's fairly broadly based, and this is very good news.
And remember, Jim Chalmers just happened to put out during the election that this is just one of a cascading amount of rate cuts to come.
Markets are now expecting around 4 interest rate cuts in Australia this calendar year.
Oh, maybe not. Why? Orange man bad. Remember, they've got a complete cover story for the next 4 years. Whatever bad happens in Australia, Trump's fault. Whatever good happens in Australia, Chalmers' responsibility. You see how this is going to work? Well, according to the Australian newspaper and its analysis of what was being said by the Reserve Bank today, they say that mortgage relief for millions, but the RBA is not expected to do much more, meaning don't get ready. Well, that's probably about as many cuts as going to come our way. Now, I'm going to on and off with the glasses, and you can see the Commodore 64 is doing great tonight. But geopolitical uncertainties also remain pronounced. These developments are expected to have an adverse effect on global economic activity, particularly if households and firms delay expenditure pending greater clarity on the outlook. Translation, this might be it. So the suggestion of 4 or maybe 5, because you see the economy was going to be so bad because of Trump, but then the stock market levelled out, both here and in the United States, that the promise that, of course, was not at all political during an election campaign for 4, maybe 5 rate cuts this calendar year, well, we may well be tapping out at 2. Now, as a person paying off a mortgage, I want there to be 7, 8, 9 cuts. But let's also put this in some context. One of the reasons why perhaps the streets are not being filled like they were at the end of World War II with celebrating Australians, knowing that tyranny was behind them, was because the total amount that the average person on about a $600-and-something thousand mortgage has had to pay since the interest rates started to go up in 2022 is a grand total of an extra $18,000 per year. That's been at least more than 1 year, so you can do your own sums there. The February cut, the May cut, is $2,400 off each and every year. Now, good, but you've already had to spend, what, $30-something thousand extra. So forgive me if $2,000 is not going to result in people running around in the streets. However, the Treasurer, of course, remember, bad news Trump, good news Chalmers, and today being a good news day, asterisk, maybe, well, Chalmers, of course, patting himself on the back.
This is the second interest rate cut in the last 3 months. It does reflect the very substantial and sustained progress that we've made together on inflation in our economy.
Now, I don't know if she's auditioning for a job in what is now an increasingly smaller pool of people to choose from when it comes to the opposition and its front bench. But the freshly re-elected member for Flinders, Zoe McKenzie, well, she nailed the reality today when she was having a chat with Chris Kenny that, yes, down is good. Down is good. But it is not way down. And remember, 13 up, 2 down means the collective pressure of 11 interest rates is still there on the average homeowner.
I'm sure Jim Chalmers is having a great time patting himself on the back for today's one increment in the right direction, but we've got a long way to go before there's confidence in business circles and an ability for businesses to keep growing and keep employing and keep providing opportunity for Australians.
So, any other political news around today?
The coalition is over. The Nationals walking away from the Liberals in a public split from the decades-old alliance.
The Liberals and Nationals are splitting up, failing to reach a deal.
The Liberal-National partnership coming to an end after almost 80 years.
It's almost like they're excited to bring you the news. For his part, and we will talk to David Littleproud in a couple of minutes' time, this was his logic behind this history-making decision that was announced this afternoon in Canberra.
Those positions that we couldn't get comfort around a nuclear being part of an energy grid into the future, about the Regional Australia Future Fund, a $20 billion fund paying a $1 billion dividend every year above and beyond to change the lives of regional Australians, about employing and training some doctors, to actually filling in some potholes, to actually giving young families the hope of childcare, what we fight for every day. That's the principal position we took that we needed to have comfort around. It's around divestiture powers for supermarkets.
As for Susan Lee, here she was in Canberra responding to what apparently was an announcement she got about 30 minutes notice of.
We'll listen, we'll step up, we'll modernise and we will rebuild.
For their part, as you've seen on our airwaves tonight, on all of our excellent programs hosted by all of my wonderful mates, you've seen leaders from the past who have been very successful in Australian politics believing that today is a mistake being made by the National Party.
I am very sorry that this has happened, and I urge both parties to work overtime to put the coalition back together again, because all the history of Australia suggests that the glory days of the Liberal Party and the National Party, the old country party, are when they are working together in government.
There's no doubt in my mind that experience shows over the 80 years that the coalition agreement has been in place, that working together produces better government for the country, and Australia needs better government now more than ever.
Two very smart, very sober blokes who I hope are involved in trying to put the parties back together. As one of millions of people who wanted these two parties to form a government just a few weeks ago, I share every bit of deflated feelings that you feel tonight. But as always, be it a by-election, state election, federal election or any big event, you know I try to break it down with 5 things that are rolling around in my head right now. Food for thought, not the final say, not the purity test, just what I'm thinking tonight at the head of what is going to be a very long road to the future. Number 1, yes, time apart may be helpful. Put simply, the Nats say that the Libs are Labor light. The Libs say that the National Party has forced them to be the National Party light. The reality is that some time apart means that they will be able to say what they are, who they are, what they stand for, and presumably come an election or after an election or when it seems like they may win elections, they of course may well come back closer together. I certainly hope that not nasty words are said, and I certainly hope that when three-cornered contests, because that is the reality of the National Party and the Liberal Party not playing the same game, is that when they come up in competition against each other, that they complement each other, that they do not attack each other, and the inevitable personality stuff can be put to one side. But that may well be some wishful thinking. Number 2, the longer they stay apart, the worse this gets, because people become entrenched. I won't move, you won't move, I won't change, you won't change. And sadly, as many people may know in their own personal life, the longer the trial separation goes, the more likely it is to end in a divorce rather than getting back together. Number 3, all of this only makes Labor more powerful. Here are the numbers when it comes to the Parliament. Now, it doesn't matter because, of course, the government can pass legislation with its eyes closed and half of its MPs drunk in a bar. But the reality is that with more than 90 MPs that are the Labor Party, barely 30 MPs, in fact a little bit less, that are there for the Liberal Party, and depending on how you count the LNP, there's not a huge amount of National Party MPs that are in the federal parliament. This, of course, means that if they are trying to put Labor on the ropes over the inevitable failures of the next 3 years, they'll have 2 completely different strategies when it comes to question time. Literally, the National Party will now probably have as much access to question time as the single Greens MP does. They won't be shadow ministers, pay will all be affected, but as I'll talk about with David Littleproud, they believe that this is the best way to guarantee that they remain a force in Australian politics. Now, I wouldn't imagine that you're going to end up with Nationals running against Liberals in inner urban seats, but you might see things on the fringes of cities. All of that only makes Labor more powerful. And for those of us who wanted Labor to be less powerful after this election, again, I share your sense of deflation. Number 4, I think the timing of this is unfair to Susan Lee. Now, please don't write me like some people do. Oh, you're always, your girlfriend, Susan Lee, grow up. The simple point is that this could have happened next week. It could have happened next month. I don't understand how the leadership stuff was playing out in the final days of her mum's life, and I don't understand why this hammer blow happens before she's had an opportunity to have a funeral for her mum. I don't understand that. That's a difficult question, but I'll be asking it to David Littleproud directly in a moment or two's time. And 5, this yet again underlines another hard line of division in Australia. Under 50 versus over 50, 2 very different worldviews. Gender, 2 very different worldviews. And now city versus country. And as a person who loves the bush as much as I do the cities, a person who is looking forward to going to places like Cairns, who's been proud to do shows in Kalgoorlie, who's been proud to broadcast from Mount Isa, who loves being able to do shows in Launceston, who's been privileged enough to broadcast from Alice Springs and many, many, many other places. I want all of Australia to have the best of its political representation, and I want all of Australia to have the best of living standards. The idea of the National Party and the Liberal Party being as far away from government as they currently are, and potentially even further away as a result of this move, means that the people in those regional areas, in my view, are only going to be further insulted by city-centric Labor governments who, state and federal, think that because those local communities vote national, more renewables for you. Because those populations are less than the more densely populated cities, you don't get your roads fixed up. The reality of the coalition, when the National Party is working with the Liberal Party in opposition and then in government, the relationship between a National Party MP and a Minister of the day, who may well happen to be the Liberal, or the capacity to go to the Prime Minister, means that regional concerns are front and centre. The only party that does represent regional Australia is the National Party at a significant national level. Yes, there are voices in the Senate, particularly when it comes to the representation of one nation in the Senate. But in terms of our daily politics, in terms of the high profile that comes from question time, and more importantly, the ability to take a complaint from the smallest street of Swan Hill and take it all the way to Canberra, to be working together in a coalition, moving your way towards or being in government is the best way to get solutions. Everyone feeling good about purity tests means everyone will fail at those purity tests. The Labor Party will, of course, make its most of divisions. That said, as I said at the very start, yes, time apart may be helpful. I hope it is but months, not years. But if it is years, it will be many more years before anyone but the Labor Party is going to form government in this country. And for my view, that's not a good thing for our country.